Well, welcome into Football Letter Live. We're having already some technical glitches going on here for a special edition, a special blue-white weekend edition of Football Letter Live. As always, I'm joined with by my partner, my sidekick, John Paterno. John, how are you this evening?
I'm doing well, Paul. I'm glad to be back for a special episode for Blue White Week. We've got a Super Bowl champion with us tonight. We've also got Kirk Diehl, who's probably got more good stories to share than most people you'll ever meet. So I think tonight's going to be a good time. I appreciate everyone tuning in.
Yeah, and everyone would have heard that if I wasn't muted in the open. And so, again, we are a little rusty off of our fall season of Football Letter Live, but we have a great show lined up for you tonight. As always, we encourage the audience to go ahead and share questions and shout outs in the chat. If you're excited to hear Grant Haley and his story from his wonderful season this past season in the NFL, go ahead and let us know who you are, where you're from, and shout outs to our guests all throughout the evening. We'll try to get as many of them up on the screen as possible. But John, let's get started and bring Grant onto the show.
Yeah, Grant Haley, football letterman with Penn State from 2014 to 2017, Big Ten champion, Fiesta Bowl champion. He was a team captain in 2017, honorable mention All Big Ten, a semifinalist for the Jim Thorpe Award for the nation's top defensive back. And as everyone knows, and we might even bring up the video tonight, scored one of the most iconic touchdowns in Penn State history, scoring the blocked field goal for a touchdown against Ohio State in 2016, really propelling that team to the Big Ten title and to the Rose Bowl. And he was as successful as he was at Penn State. He's fresh off a Super Bowl win. So we're going to certainly talk to him about that with the Los Angeles Rams. Grant Haley, we are thrilled that you're joining us for Football Letter Live. How are you doing tonight, sir?
I'm doing good. I appreciate you, Paul and John, for kind of having me on the show. I know any chance I get to come back and speak some Penn State ball is a blessing. And I've enjoyed my time here at Penn State. So it's such a blessing. It's good to be with you guys today.
So Grant, we usually ease into interviews. We ask Penn Staters how they got to Penn State, kind of, some easy questions or easing it in. But we're going to start off right off the bat, Super Bowl champion. How does it feel to be a Super Bowl champion?
I think it's still settling in. I know we started up again today. So, we're kind of locked in on, what's going to be happening in this 2022 season. But, it was a blessing. It's something you always dreamed about as a kid, running out there, playing the Super Bowl. And just it was a dream come true, to have, most of my family, my grandparents, my mom, my brother and sister, my new fiance in the stadium. It was such a beautiful moment for us to go out there and win. And that was the best part, just being able to win the game.
You mentioned your new fiance. Congratulations on the recent engagement. We saw all the pics on Instagram. Wonderful time in your life. Super Bowl champion, engaged to be married. Take us onto the field, right? The confetti's flying. You're celebrating with your teammates. What's it like when you realize you've climbed to the top of the mountain and achieved a childhood dream of winning the Super Bowl?
I think for me, it was just a sign of relief. It's been a long year for me, just early in camp. I lost my father, and then just going into New Orleans, going back to camp and then getting released. And I was kind of on the couch for about 6-7 weeks. I worked out for about 8 teams. So the morale was, I won't say it was low, but it was a challenging time in my life. But got the opportunity to go out to Los Angeles and to start on the practice squad and just embrace my role to just be a better player for the offense. And then eventually I got the opportunity to go out there on special teams and make an impact and try to do the best I could. And that's how I took every single day. I took it day by day and just embraced my role. And when that confetti came flying down, I saved some. I put it in a little bag. I keep it around with me just because it's just a moment. You never know if you're going to get an opportunity like that again. So I just wanted to embrace every single moment of being a Super Bowl champion. And I truly think I did that. And it's still kind of, and it still kind of feels, like it's a dream, but it's a moment that I will always remember.
We can all get used to confetti showers, can't we?
Oh, absolutely.
We were talking about the pictures on Instagram. Nick Scott was in a lot of those pictures with you, obviously teammates at Penn State. How much did that help? Just, having a college teammate with you in the NFL. And of course, now you've got Allen Robinson joining you. How much did that help kind of having, Nick with you, knowing that, where you guys come from and how hard you've worked?
Yeah, me and Nick came in together in class of 2014, Franklin's first class at Penn State, and it's special. It's special with all your teammates, but it's special to be kind of that group of guys that you feel like help change the program, help set a different tone for Penn State football in the future. And so being able to have Nick on the squad and seeing his progression from when he was a running back at Penn State to making big time plays as a safety, he stepped up big for the team when we needed him, and it was just so amazing to watch, just because he put in so much hard work and effort, to perfect his craft as a safety, and being able to be together again. I think that was really special for us. It was special for even just our girls, just to be able to, know people that they knew. And then I lived on the floor above, below him. So when I first moved in, so it was just funny how everything just kind of started working. When our friendship just came back like it was back in Penn State, and you're always going to have those bond with those guys, and it was just special to be able to have a moment where you went through Penn State together, felt like you had a big impact on changing the program and being ultimately a Super Bowl champion.
So Grant, take us back to high school. You're being recruited by Penn State. Take us through that whole story, right? How did you become a Penn State Nittany Lion?
So I would say I was never really truly recruited by Penn State until Franklin got there. So I was part of the class, a couple guys that was committed to Vanderbilt, and then Franklin got the opportunity to go to Penn State. It was something that was never truly on my radar. I came from Georgia, where a lot of what you hear is SEC football, and I don't know if I was bought into that motto, but but being able to go visit Penn State was special for me for a couple of reasons. It was what I truly wanted, and I'm so glad I got the opportunity. Like the college town atmosphere, the academic success, the athletic success that Penn State football has always had, and it was special because my mom, she graduated from Penn State in the low 80s. I don't want to give away her age, but she graduated from Penn State, and it was one of her first times back up there since she was a student. And when she got back up there, I felt like she was a kid again. And it was just so special for. I have a really special relationship with my mother, so it was good for us to have that bond and be able to bring her back to, her college days.
You have to give her a shout out. Your mom didn't just go to Penn State, right? She was a student athlete when she was here at Penn State. So probably a lot of shared experiences that you went through. Your mom had some of those same experiences here as a Nittany Lion.
Yeah, absolutely. She started her career at Penn State. She was a track and field athlete. Unfortunately, injuries are part of the game, part of the lifestyle, and she got hurt, which, she tore her Achilles, which kind of transitioned her into, the medical side of just life. And she fell in love with, being a doctor. And, I think and she always credits Penn State to just not just like her academic and future success, but the Joe Pod days. She'll go back and tell me all these stories about her driving down to the Sugar Bowl on a bus from Pennsylvania and down in Louisiana. So it's good to hear, those stories, but it's also good to kind of recreate those moments, just even playing in those big New Year's Six Bowl games and the Fiesta Bowl and the Rose Bowl is, I feel like life really came full circle for her.
Well, see, you went ahead and did it. You mentioned the Sugar Bowl, and you gave away her age a little bit there. So.
Funny.
Hey, Grant, you've mentioned your mom and your dad, and we know how much of an impact your dad had on you, how much of an impact your mom continues to have on you. A lot of Penn Staters know, the story that the two of you shared during your time at Penn State. Just how much did their influence and kind of their values, impact you and perhaps still impact you to this day?
Yeah, I think the values and the lessons they taught me just as a young child have carried me through, my young man ages. And I think it's just the gifts of sacrifice, service, and just truly being a better educational person, and just really not focusing on football, not focusing on sports, but that even though that's a passion, it's never going to take you, it's going to take you as far as you want to go, hopefully, but you need to have a plan on the back burner. And I think that was really important to me, to keep doing my academic success. I was able to prove my parents that I wasn't just focused on the football. Going into Penn State, being a 3-time Big Ten academic person, and being a semifinalist for the National Academic Award, and there's special things for me that just made me realize that I am more than just an athlete. And, being able to continue my education currently now and trying to get my master's, it's just important for me to continue, making them proud as not just as, the athlete that, they drove me up and down the East Coast to practices, to camps, but as a student and how they instilled in me, and putting education at the forefront. And so those are just little things that have, carried me through my life, to make sure I remember that, there is a bright future for me ahead, after football. And that's what, I love the game of football, but, I'm really excited, one day to try to, prove that, I want to be, that businessman. I want to be somebody broader, bigger than just a football player in the past. And so I just want to make them proud in that aspect.
Well, John, that's just a continuation of what it means to be a Penn Stater, right? I mean, that's Grant's talking about success with honor, right? Without saying success with honor, it's come to Penn State, win the right way, and get your degree and compete at the highest level. And talk about competing at the highest level, not only Super Bowl champion, but all your championship ways really started here at Penn State with that 2016 Big Ten championship team. But well before we got to Indianapolis, John had it in the intro there, and you see it up on the screen. You and Marcus Allen teamed up for one of the iconic moments in Penn State history. Take us through that game. Take us through kind of, what your mindset was going into that Ohio State game and the opportunity that you had there. And then when opportunity was knocking on the door, what you and Marcus were able to put together there.
Yeah, I think everybody goes back to 2016. It was definitely a special year. I think it's special because if you look at where the year started, we're 2-2. We just had a tough loss to Michigan, and we had 2 games at home. I think it was Minnesota. We beat them in overtime. Then we played, I think it was Rutgers or somebody, and we were able to, kind of have two good games leading into that game. We knew it was important. Obviously it's a whiteout. One of the greatest atmospheres in the world. The fans, just the atmosphere, the culture is just, it feels right. It feels right. And I think going into that game, we took a walk around the hotel, just because it was a night game. You don't want to be sitting around. And I think, everyone, the confidence was there. We knew it was going to be a battle, but the confidence was there. Everybody had faith in one another, and, game went back and forth throughout the game. And then, obviously got the opportunity. Marcus did an amazing job blocking the kick. I think earlier in that game, he had another opportunity to block a kick, and he missed it by, just a hair. And, I remember he went over the sideline to Coach Huff, who was a special teams coordinator at the time. And he was talking about, where do I need to be? Where's the block point? Where can I make this game-changing play? And, he took his coaching and applied it on the field. And, he did the hard part. I just scooped it up and ran. And, it's always good to see those pictures because, in that moment I was kind of blacking out, to say the least. So it's always good to see pictures or videos of the moment. And, truly, I'm just glad I didn't get caught. That was the most important thing for me. And then, it was just everything you dreamed about, as a college athlete, just winning the big time game, upsetting the team, and, one of the biggest, atmospheres in the world. And, going out there and, having the fans rush the field, singing the alma mater down there on the field with, I don't know, 100,000 people. It was amazing. Is, something that, you'll just live on, in my life. And I know, lives of Penn Staters everywhere.
All right, Grant, let's go back to that play for 1 second, though. You're a fast guy, right? You were a triple turner, right? But was that not the fastest punter in the history of college football? The holder on that play, I don't know where he got those wheels from, but you say you're glad you didn't get caught. It was a little bit closer than you might have thought, being in a foot race with the punter. How would you have been able to go into the locker room had you been caught from behind by a punter?
I don't know if I would have been able to go into the locker room. I will say, he, the punter, or the holder at the time was a punter. He's in the league right now. He's an Australian rugby player. So maybe that's where he got his speed from. I don't know. But I'm just glad I was a step faster. But yeah, so I wouldn't have been able to go to the locker room. I don't know if I would ever show my face back in Atlanta again. So, but, I'm glad everything turned out well. Was able to fall in the end zone, lift my hands up. Thank God. And just, that was truly what I was thanking God for. But no, it was amazing, but I'm glad he just didn't catch me, like you said.
Hey, Grant, sticking with this team, Penn Staters who are champions, they always talk about leadership, developing leadership at Penn State and having strong leaders on the team. How strong was the leadership on that team in 2016, and what were some of the places that it came from?
Yeah, I think it came from just a lot of, ups and downs throughout not just that year, but the previous 2 years because we knew we were good. We knew we could compete with, some of the top teams in the country and just the level of leadership we had. I think that year we had I think we had 8 captains. That just shows you, it was hard for, the team to make a decision on just 4 people to kind of lead them through a season. It took a collective effort to kind of be the captains, but it didn't just come from the captains on our team. It came from the first string to the third string. I thought that was like the moment in time everyone was bought in, and not just when you win a big game, obviously the feelings are good, you feel confident, but I think even in the dark moments, people used to say we were a second half team, but I think that was just a ultimate poise of the team that we had, the leaders that we had, when things were going down. I remember being in the Big Ten championship and guys who, were leaders at the beginning of the year who weren't being able to play, they're screaming at us, telling us, like Brandon Bell, like we wouldn't have Brandon Bell that game, or Naeem. We didn't have Naeem, and he was screaming, crying in the locker room. And, it just showed you how important it was for, not just people playing, but everybody, and how we wanted to be successful as a team, and how everyone was bought in at that moment.
Grant, we can go through all the highlights, all the great plays, but when you think back on your time at Penn State, what are some of your strongest memories that you have of your time here in Happy Valley?
I think just the people, I think that's what's really is special to me. I've got lasting friendships with, so many people that I came in with, not just in my class, but, just throughout my time at Penn State. It's been so special. A lot of the people, like I said, got engaged last week, and a lot of the guys I played football with came up to, celebrate that. And I think that's been, special thing that we understand is that, we're blessed to be in a position. We came through, the dog days to, the highest of highs. And, I think it's just part of not just, football, but it's part of life. And there's guys that, I love dearly, and I know they love me dearly, and do, move mountains for me. So it's just being able to, be grateful for my time at Penn State and the people that we were able to play with, because we got a special group of guys, and everyone always talks about, how they wish they had like a group, that stays friends like us. And, I don't take that for granted, because I know how important that is. And, it's just it was a blessing to be able to play with those guys and, just live life with them at a time, when you're 18, 22 years old, and, being able to keep everybody focused on, a common goal to, ultimately get to where you want to be. I think that's, it's pretty impressive in itself.
Grant, you talk about playing at Beaver Stadium, making memories. A lot of Nittany Lions are going to be playing at Beaver Stadium for the first time this weekend for Blue-White game. When you were a player at Penn State, what did Blue-White mean to you, and kind of to be able to get out in front of the fans for the first time in 4 or 5 months?
Yeah, I think it's an opportunity to just showcase what you've been working on. You've been grinding in the spring. I remember winter workouts at 5 a.m. to spring practice. Those are the dog days to see really, who wants to be, playing on Saturdays in front of the full crowd. And when you get that opportunity to showcase not what you're just doing in practice, but you get to showcase it in a game-like atmosphere, in front of the fans that, truly love Penn State and really want you guys to be successful. I think it's such an amazing experience. And going out in blue and white is a chance for, younger guys to make their names for themselves. Summer camp comes, and, when you get a chance to go out there and you show that you're ready to be out there in the bright lights and in front of, so many fans, we get so many fans at the spring game. There's other stadiums that aren't going to be that big, and there's not going to be that big of a crowd. So when you can go out there and show that you're ready in front of, so many thousands of people, it shows that Penn State is doing what they need to do to continue to be successful.
Well, hey, Grant, thanks for joining us on Football Letter Live. Much continued success to you. I like seeing you in that Rams uniform a whole lot better than that Giants uniform. So keep doing what you're doing, and much success to you.
Thank you, Paul and John, for having me on the show today. I appreciate you guys, and we are
Penn State. Thanks, Grant. Appreciate you.
Thank you.
John, look, the eras change, but the messages never do, right? It's coming to Penn State. It's getting your degree, right? It's winning the right way. You hear that from Grant Haley. We heard it from all of our guests back in the fall. And I think that's quintessential Penn State right there.
Yeah, and you talk about the level of maturity that he showed. It's a big deal to play in the Super Bowl, obviously, but to do it so early in your career and to be able to handle that moment, and to be such a resource for his mom, and to be such an ambassador for his family, and coming to Penn State, I think the university and the community embraced him, made him feel like this was home. I don't think he regrets his decision coming here to Penn State after, originally going to Vanderbilt. And so, people forget about that. But you see pictures of him and Nick, huge smiles, and just, such an easy guy to root for, such a guy that you want to see good things continue to come his way. And, because he does things the right way, and he deserves, all the good things that are coming to him, not only now, but I'm sure coming to him in the future.
Absolutely. Hey, John, if you want good barbecue, go to play football at Vanderbilt, then go to Martin's in Nashville. You want to play big games in front of epic crowds and whiteouts, come to Penn State and win some championships.
Absolutely.
Well, hey, speaking of another champion, and on our champion lineup of champions that we have tonight here on Football Letter Live, we have Kirk Diehl. Kirk is the director of the Varsity S Club here at Penn State. Prior to his role, Kirk was a longtime member of the football staff. He served as the coordinator of practice facilities since '99, assisted in the planning and coordination of the football team's equipment needs and supervision of the 12 student managers. He also oversaw scheduling and maintenance of Haluba Hall, which is Penn State's indoor practice facility. He began his career as an assistant equipment manager with one of our icons, Spider over there. A lot of great stories. Worked with a lot of our amazing student athletes. Kirk, thanks for joining us on Football Letter Live.
I appreciate the opportunity, and I got to follow up with Grant. He said two things that I have heard since 1991 when I first set foot on campus, just thinking about going to higher education, and that was, no matter what you do, make an impact, right? I've heard that. If I heard it once, I heard it 4 million times. And know your role. Know your role, do your job. And I think those are probably the two quintessential definitions of success with honor. You find yourself, and no matter if whatever your charge is, right, you're going to do the best you can. You're going to make an impact, and you're always making that, no matter where you are in life. That's what you're doing. And then know your role. You're brought in to do a reason, and you don't know what it is sometimes. But if you're trying to make an impact, your role is going to define itself, and you're going to be able to be plugged right in. So I just had to follow it up. Those were two things. And just sitting there listening to him, it didn't matter if it was 1992 or if it's 2022. I think the core values of Penn State, and I always tell people, Penn State's not better. It's just different. It takes a special person to come to school here. It takes a special person to work here. And Coach Paterno used to always say there's two types of Penn Staters, those that came here and those that should have. So I always remember that.
Well said. Talk about know your role in making an impact. Let's talk about your role with the Varsity S Club. It's a place where former student athletes can maintain their relationship with Penn State. Talk a little bit about what Varsity S Club is all about and what your role is there.
Yeah, thank you. Basically, in the Alumni Association world, ladies and gentlemen, it's basically I'm the alumni coordinator for the athletic department. Real tough job, right? Keeping your alumni athletes. Actually, your alumni, right? Students who happen to be athletes, alums that were athletes here. And I don't call them like former student athletes, they're alumni athletes. And that's one of the first things that I always try and help people when they say, hey, you were a former athlete. No, they're an alumni athlete. You're always an athlete. And it's engagement, right? It's keeping connected to the university. And, one of the things when I was thinking about stepping away from football after spending all my time as an undergrad and employee there, it was a good 20, 21 years. And I was like, what am I going to do? How am I going to make my impact? All I knew was the locker room. And I saw the same passion that I had for football, being a student manager at the time, and then an employee. the same passion I had for that program is the same passion that the fencing team had, swimming and diving, bowling, boxing, alums that sports that we're no longer NCAA competitive in. And it was easy. It was a great transition. And what I loved about it was the opportunity to welcome them home. This is home, right? No matter where we are, if we're in California, Hawaii, Germany, South America, when you get back on campus, you're back home. And so I was able to learn that and do that. And I have a great network now. We have over 14,500 alumni athletes that are still with us. And I'm proud to say that we have just north of 11,700 contact information, which those in the alumni world knows pretty damn good. But I have a brand new platform. It's called Athlete Network. It's about alumni engagement. It's a resource that that is helping me. I'm a one person show, but I have a lot of support with coaches and their staffs that help me. But this Athlete Network program that I use, it's specifically geared to keeping alumni athletes engaged. And so it's a special program. I'm now in year 4 of that. And I've learned so much from those people like me on their resources from not only that company, but all of our peer institutions as well. So that's my job. Keep them engaged. If an engaged alum is usually a happy alum, and a happy alum is usually a supportive alum, whether that's through philanthropic endeavors or if it's through volunteerism. And there's nothing too more powerful than that. So that's my job. That's my charge.
Excellent.
Yeah, and we shared the link for that Athlete Network in the comments, so you can check that out. We'll also share that after the show in the comments, so you can learn more about that and the impact that Kirk is having. You talk about staying connected to the university. Certainly, that's exactly what you've done. And we know, like, we want to get to the stories. We want to get to the good stuff. But before we do, how did you wind up at Penn State, and kind of like, what's your origin story?
Yeah, so it's ironic. My father was born and raised in Kernsville, Pennsylvania. It's a little small town right off of 80, Clearfield area. He hitchhiked on 80 when it was a 2-lane road, stood in line at General Motors in Youngstown, Warren area, got a job. He met his bride, my mom. She was a General Motors employee, and they pitched a tent in Warren, Ohio. And I didn't know anything about Pennsylvania, right? It's Warren, for those that don't know the Warren, Youngstown area, it's inner city. I went to 2 different high schools. We actually consolidated due to budget. So I graduated from a class of 1,200. But at the time, my dad always talked about, I got brown hair. Look at that guy. It was Penn State. He knew a bunch of engineers that came from Penn State. He loved the university. He loved everything about it. My mom and dad, like I said, they did not go to college. They stood in line to get their jobs. And I'm a middle of 3 boys, right? So those of you that are middle children, I suffer from MCS syndrome, middle child syndrome, and I just was on my own. But my dad, I remember the first Penn State experience was the '86 Fiesta Bowl, right? And I didn't know anything about my dad and my oldest brother. They loved like football, like they loved it. They almost to the point where it was a disease for them. You know, if they were big Steelers fans because being from Pennsylvania. And I was just like, look, I'm watching the game, right? I'm enjoying the game. I'm watching the team behind it. And so my dad said, let's watch this Fiesta Bowl game. And as we all know, the Fiesta Bowl is the most watched football game if it's still not, it's still in the top 5. And I watched it, and I watched those men at the time. I was all of 9 years old. And but they came together and they did an upset. So that was my first Penn State experience. After that, I can't really share anything else. I got to meet Coach Paterno in my sophomore year in high school. He was recruiting 3/5 of our offensive line at Warren Harding, where I'm from. And I got to know him. I got to know Tom Bradley, Scrap, very well. He was his area. And they went all the way. They recruited Corey Stringer, LaShawn Daniels, and Greg Kuzmo, who they were there for. And I kind of just loved the way they carried themselves differently as opposed to all the other coaches that came in. They were coat and tie. They were buttoned up. They were very polite. When I met them, I was a student coach, right? They stood up and shook my hand, and I was like, damn, that's pretty cool. Like, here's this guy that I watched on TV. So I said something to my dad. I applied to Penn State, and that's the only school I applied for. And I got in, and I told my head football coach who passed away, I was like, hey, I'd really like to maybe continue what I'm doing to Penn State. Well, the good news was Corey, LaShawn, and Greg didn't commit anywhere at the time. So when Coach Annarella called Coach Paterno and passed him through, he still thought he was going to give information. So he said, "Hey, I got this young man who you met. I'd love to, I think he'd be a great student resource for you." So Joe's like, "Okay, yeah, no problem." He's already accepted. So I came over and interviewed. Well, as if those who don't know, Corey, LaShawn, and Greg all went to Ohio State. So Joe used to always tease me. He said, those three guys went to Ohio State and I got stuck with the student manager. And he used to tell me that like all the time. Like I used to take care of him on Friday nights. I'd get him out to the hotel and he would just say, "You never did?" "Yeah, coach, I remember. I'm the student manager. I got it." But he hired me. So it worked out pretty well. But that's my Penn State origin story. I came here. I met my wife. She turned around in Theater 100 back in 1993, I think it was, and told me to shut up. Wally Richardson and I were talking, and she turned around and told me to shut up. And the very next class was COM 260W, which is a weed out course. So we were 300 people to 20, and her maiden name was Cook, and my last name was Diehl. And we sat side by side, and I remember looking at her and saying, "Boy, this is going to be a long semester." And she said, "You got that right." So we became friends, and next thing you know, we got engaged in 96 and married in 97.
That's amazing, John. I don't even think we need to ask Kirk questions. We'll just say, "Hey, what's on your mind now?" And just let him go.
We just got to give a name.
It's funny, he was impressed by Coach Paterno and Scrap wearing a shirt and tie and jacket. But Kirk, you shared a story with us about how Bill O'Brien wasn't so impressed with that dress code.
Yeah. So, full disclosure for those, I couldn't even begin to tell you, even if I wanted or thought about writing a book about, yeah, Dave, I agree. Mrs. Diehl is the best. She's a hell of a mom too, better than anything. But it's tough to put in words. First and foremost, what Bill meant to me personally. We went through hell, right? All I knew is what Joe had charged me with and what he taught me and that staff and Bill validated all that. And I didn't know him from Adam, and he didn't have to keep. One of the last things that Coach told me before he passed was, he used to call me Chief. He said, Chief, just keep your head down, your mouth shut. The new guy might love you, he might hate you. It's not your fault. It's not his fault. You just know your role and do your job, and you'll see it works out. And so it was tough. And I didn't know if he wanted me there, right? You just didn't know. Well, what I didn't know was the players talking about how much that I meant to them, that's why you work, right? That's why you don't have a job, right? If you have a job, you shouldn't be doing it. You want to go to work. You want to carry your lunch pail and go to work. And so I was looking around. I'm not going to lie. I was like, he doesn't want me. He hardly talks to me or whatever. We were getting, brought in front of all kinds of committees and juries and things. It was tough. And I remember in May, we ran our first camp and I'll clean this up. He said, "Kirk," and he motioned me like this, and I kept running across the field. And I remember telling Spider, I said, "Well, this is it, buddy. This is my walking paper speech." And he looked, I wonder, I said, "Yeah, coach." He's like, "Hey, I heard you were looking around." I said, "Well, I just didn't know." And he interrupted me. He said, I freaking love you. You're with me." And I said, "That's all I needed, coach." And that was it. And we just became, it was just awesome. He was a young Joe for me. He was what I would envision Coach Paterno being at 44, 45 is what we were. And of course he's my age. So it was different having a grandfather figure and Bill. But so we were talking and we were getting our travel party roster together. And I remember him saying something to Spire and I. He's like, "Hey, so what's the team going to travel in?" And I said, "Well, coach, it's your charge. It's your mission." "Well, what'd you guys used to travel in?" I was like, "Coat and tie." And he's like, "So what do you and Spider wear?" And I'm like, "Coat and tie." And he's like, "Okay, well, I got to go get some more ties then because I only had one." And he only bought one tie because of the, in full disclosure, because of the coach's caravan. And then so he only had one tie and he went out and got a couple. But we did dress the players down. They asked if they could do warm ups and for those of you that remember, the players were a special group and they got me personally through a lot because they played for the love of the game. There was no bowl games we were going to and things like that. And that was just 2 special seasons, just for I think for the university to realize what we're doing was more than just the wins and losses. And I think it's always been that way. It's easy to forget that these are 18 to 22-year-old young people, men and women in all of our sports, but they keep score for a reason. I'm not going to lie to you, and it hurts when you win or lose. But they're young people. They're still learning a lot of different things, and it's not getting any easier. Yeah, so Bill didn't have Bill wasn't real high on the coat and tie, but he did it. He put the coat and tie on, and I know it's a long way of getting around, but I just wanted to show that off my chest with you. So yeah, it was different times though, for sure.
Absolutely. So, hey, you have a whole treasure trove of Joe Paterno stories that I'm sure you could share. We just had a great picture of you and Coach Paterno on the field together.
Mm.
I think you're out in front of him, and he's saying, "Get the heck off the field, Chief."
Well, it looks like that, and it's funny. That was shared to me after Coach passed, and I didn't know it was taken by a journalist. If you look close enough, that's that awful 2009 Citrus. I guess it was the Camping World or whatever it's called now. Everybody changes names, but it was. If you look at the field close enough, well, we were playing LSU, and the official just made a horrendous call. It was awful, and I knew my role. Like you can see that little pouch on my hip. I helped. During games, I helped with equipment and things that needed fixed, and it was just a bad call, and I lost my poise. Joe was always talking about your poise, and we're not as close as that picture looks. Right, a camera can do it. I didn't. Trust me, if I knew he was behind me, I wouldn't have been anywhere near that field. But every once in a while, I would lose it, and we had an incident just kind of like this, but it was more. We always told the guys to keep your poise. Right, it's a big thing. We were at Wisconsin during that unbelievable 2008 year where Daryl Clark was the quarterback, and we just had special people. And we're out at Wisconsin, and Cedric Jeffries, I'll never forget, Ced Jet is what we called him. And he was a tremendous athlete, and he broke his leg in two places on a punt return. And so part of my responsibilities was to take care of I was never paid to win a game, right? Just always take care of the young people. And we walked by, and for those of you who have never been to Camp Randall, it's a great environment. And Wisconsin's got some passionate fans, and their students are very passionate. They sit in the end zone right when you come out of the visiting team tunnel. So I told Cedric, I was like, "Hey, babe," I said, "we're going to walk by these people, and they're going to be on you. All right, just keep your poise. Don't even acknowledge them. You just look at me. We'll be fine." And of course, we walked through, and they're like, "Oh, wimp," blah blah blah. We get in the locker room. He gets all showered. I put him in a sweatshirt and a hoodie, and we walk back out. And this one co-ed, he was pretty had a lot of bratwurst and beer in him, I think, and he said something that just set me off, and I lost it. And so after we're all done, this police officer comes by, and goes, "Do you want him thrown out?" I'm like, "No, I'm good. I apologize." And we start walking, and Cedric's got this big old smile. He's like, "Keep your poise." So I said, "Well, that's I was just all over it." And to this day, every time he comes back, and his mom shares the story too, she's like, "You had my son's back." And I said, "It's just one of those little things you do." But as Grant said, there's nothing like the locker room and what those young men and my role now, the young women go through. And when I bring alumni back, and like I can share a thing with Coach Walsh with women's soccer, we had an opportunity to bring the women's soccer alumni back. We've had some pretty good ones, right? Since 1994, unbelievable successful program. And she said, "Hey, can the alums talk to the?" I said, "Sure, I'll just bring them here." And those alums sat down, and for those of you that don't know, we really need to focus on getting a soccer stadium. We'll work on that, another big thing. But they were in a trailer. And I mean, they sat down, and it was like they were part of that group, and they were sharing stories back and forth. It did not matter the year. The stories were the same. It was just amazing. So that's kind of, just different things like that. And I can tell you, Joe demanded perfection. But he accepted excellence. And I think that's what I learned. I mean, who you see in front of you today on this Zoom is a product of my late father, my late father-in-law, and my late, college football coach, Joe Paterno. I'll never apologize for that. People always ask, like, what is Joe? I mean, this is the legacy, right? I don't have to tell you Joe's legacy, right? That's for me. We each have our own stories, and I don't need to defend him. I don't need to. I know what he's done for Kirk Diehl and his family. And I know what he's done for about 2,000 other men, family. Not everybody has a great experience, right? But they learn, and there's nothing more powerful than when you get an alum that calls you or out of the blue or says, "Hey, I was a pain in your butt, but I got it. I got it now." And those are the impactful moments. And the stories that the ones that hurt the most are the ones that you didn't feel you did a good enough job. What could I have done better? like what was my responsibility. And but yeah, I wasn't paid to win games. I was just paid to be. Spider used to always say Spider got to be the mom, the mother, and I was always the evil stepfather. So they knew when I was coming, they screwed up, and he got to embellish that role. But it was, I mean, he's my best friend to this day, right? You don't get to share 23 years together, and now he's back in the Nittany Lion Club with me. He works with Bobby White over Stadium and Suite, so him and I get to see each other, and we can go for a walk in the summertime and things like that. It's pretty clutch. So special place.
Yeah, you led me right into the question that we wanted to ask next. So Spider,
Mm-hmm.
working with him as long as you did, what was it about his kind of, personality and his attitude that allowed him to become such a beloved figure in Penn State?
Well, it's funny. It's genuine, right? It's like he loves he loves to talk and tell the story, but he loves to communicate. And that's one thing we used to always tease, because he was always out front of everything, newspaper articles, videos, and all these things. And the student managers used to always grab me and they'd be like, "You think he's the only SOB that's doing this whole thing? We're out here schlepping." I said, "Hey, boys, I've been dealing with it when I was a student. I'm dealing with it now as a coworker." But the sincerity, John, is it's just what it is. And you get to work, and we took pride in it. We took pride, and there was no job. And I think this goes back to our student manager days. There was no job that we gave other students that we were charged with that we weren't there right there with them. And when you're like, "Hey, let's clean the shoes, let's screw the helmets, let's work," we were right there with them, because you know what, we still felt good enough, right? I mean, I still think to this day that I'm still a student manager, because there was no job that was, again, know your role, right? Do the best of your ability. I got one thing signed by Joe Paterno. This just, again, these stories just pop in my mind. Spider got a phone call. I was a student, and we had this huge snowstorm. It wasn't the blizzard '93. It was about '94, and I was, I was blessed. I didn't have to struggle so hard. Education, it came pretty good. So when I wasn't in school, I didn't have to study much. I went back to the football office. Well, there was a snowstorm, and Sue had called and said, "Hey, do you have some managers available that could shovel the snow?" And the answer was like, "Well, we just have Kirk here." And she goes, "Oh, is Kirk? He's the one who brings me ice on game day," and that's a whole other story. But Sue used to cook for all, and she used to cook for all the donors and stuff. So one of my responsibilities was to take a case of ice over to her house to put the white wine on, not the red. The red stayed warm, but just to have ice at the house. So I went over and I started shoveling, and Coach, to this day, the house is very modest for those that don't know, and I started shoveling, and I was out there, and I mean, it was probably 6-7 inches deep, and I'm out there by myself, and I get done. I was out there for like 2 hours. It was heavy, and so there was no cell phones, don't remember. So Spider was going to come back and pick me up in the truck about 2.5 hours later. So I got done, and I'm just kind of sitting on the curb, and I hear the squeaky voice, and he's like, "Hey, what are you doing?" And I said, "Oh, just finished up, shoveling the driveway." He's like, "Well, let me give you some pizza money." So I walk up, and he gives me $10. And I was like, I'm standing there. I was like, "Joe Paterno just gave me $10. I said, "Coach, can you sign this?" I said, I'm not going to cash this, And the son of a gun writes, "Kirk, thanks for the shovel, Joe Paterno." That $10 bill is framed, and I don't have much. I don't have an "I love me" wall like Spider does in his office, but I do have a little framed $10 bill down in my basement where my 14-year-old plays his video games, and it just says, "Kirk, thanks for the shovel, Joe Paterno," and that's a story, right? So it was clutch. But Spider, to your point, he loved to talk to people, and when we were at the Rose Bowl in 2008, he took the managers out. He loved to set up. Everything had to be perfect, and he took them out to the Rose Bowl, and I was with the team doing some operation stuff, and I was kind of like that guy. That's basically what my position was whatever they needed, I was that guy, and so I'm with the team. Well, it's like 11 hours, and the managers aren't back yet, and we moved hotels. One of the things that Coach Paterno liked to do is take the guys who were going to play from the bowl game hotel, and we go to like a secret location, and we went to just this little Holiday Inn right across the highway there, and we're done eating. And I'm like, we got to set the video up, and all the video stuff's underneath the manager bus. So I called that we had cell phones. I called, Spider, where are you? He's like, oh, we're pulling right now. So we get in there, and I'm sitting down. All the managers come off the bus. They grab their food, and he literally, all the managers come and sit with me, and Spider's all by himself. Well, Joe sees this, and Joe knows, like, everybody loves Spider, not Kirk. He comes over, Joe's like, what the hell did Spider do to you guys? And they were like, and Joe was different. The older Joe got, the more he became a grandfather to everybody. So Joe was a lot different when I was a student manager than this. But they were like, Coach, he had us over there for 11 hours. He disappeared. He was talking to the B-2 Spirit pilots for like 3 hours. Well, one of those guys happened to be a Penn State grad. So that was it. So they were done setting up because Spider was talking for 3 hours. But that's basically what it is. And Joe just a special. I mean, everything you heard about him isn't even close. Isn't even close of what he meant to me. And again, there's I look at Sue to this day, and if I could be half as strong as she is, then there's nothing wrong. The passion she has, they love Penn State. They really, really love Penn State. And for those of you who don't know, Joe came here just to pay his law school. He was going to go to law school and be a lawyer. He fell in love with it and met his wife and never left. So just great. It was fantastic. I could go, go on forever.
Kirk, you said a bunch of things that reminded me of other Joe Paterno stories that we probably don't have time to go into, or other Spider Caldwell stories around autographs, which I don't want to start any controversies there. So we'll leave that one alone. But you mentioned their modest home, right? Yeah. I see Sue Wilson is on watching us from out there in Canton Akron chapter in the Cleveland area. And I can't remember if it was her chapter or another Ohio chapter, but Joe went out to an alumni chapter event out there, and they did a live auction during the event. And at the grand prize was dinner with Joe and Sue at the Paterno home. And so a couple of alumni got to bidding $8,000, $9,000, $10,000, $13,000, $15,000. And Joe puts his hands up. He's like, $15,000? You're crazy. I only paid $13,000 for the home.
Yeah.
And he gave it to both of them. So and the icing on top of that cake was the chapter was mad at him because they could have gone up to 20, right?
Oh, yeah.
For the scholarship. But absolutely. And then the autograph story, that's just a classic. Signing the $10 bill.
Yeah.
People think his face should be on the front of that $10 bill.
Yeah. It was, when I looked at it, I was like, well, don't you need to buy pizza or something? I'm like, I'll find some other money, Coach. I'm going to have you sign that. And I didn't know at the time. I mean, I got my job. I asked Sue. I'll full disclosure. I went to Mrs. Paterno and I said, Sue, I'd really love to stay here. How do I go about asking Coach? And she said, well, the first thing you did right is you came to me first, and I'll just tell him to hire you. And I thought she was joking. And it was August of my senior year. I had one semester left, and I went and got him. We were getting ready for the team photo. And he said, hey, I hear you want to stick around and put up with me a little bit longer. I said, Coach, it could be my, if you'll have me. And he said, I've been watching you since day one. And this goes back to what we talked about. You're always interviewing, right? And he said, you work your tail off and you keep your head down and you go with it. And so he said, I think I'll keep you around. So I knew that I didn't know what my job was, and I didn't know what my paycheck was. I just was like, oh my God, I'm going to be working for Penn State football. And, here we are 2022 and it's 25 years now. I get to pick out my rocker. My wife and I both are going to be 25 years. She's got me, I think, by 2 months. We'll have to coordinate our rockers or standalone elm chairs together, but hell of a place. And we have 5 degrees from here. My wife and I, and I always told people, Mary, my wife is now an assistant vice provost in faculty affairs at Old Main. She's been an assistant dean at HHD. She's worked Alumni Association for many years, did the TRW. How about that, people? The traditional reunion weekends before the other stuff, and ice cream socials and things like that. So just a great place. The Bennett Center raised both my kids. I have a professional ballerina. So anybody from the Nashville Alumni Association, you're getting my daughter. She got accepted. she got offered a position at the Nashville Ballet. So she's leaving. She's in Miami right now, training at Miami City, and she's on her way to Nashville in June. So she did take her acceptance at Penn State, but she deferred a year to give the professional ballet a whirl. And then my little 14-year-old son he's everything I can handle. He's me reincarnated. So he does a little 14U ice hockey right now and Fortnite player. So, but I could sit here and just talk for hours if people just ask questions, and I don't want to do that to anybody. But I think the best thing about this university is, people say, why'd you never leave? And it wasn't like I didn't have opportunities. And one of the things Joe used to always say is like, hey, you can go interview. That doesn't mean you have to take it. Then he would always tell me his New England Patriots story. And I got to tell Coach O'Brien that over a few road pops a couple of times. And I told him he got offered, not only did he get offered the head job at the New England Patriots, but he got offered, leadership in the team too, president and some ownership. And he went to bed on a yes and woke up and just didn't feel right. Didn't feel right leaving Penn State. So I remember Bill telling me that, don't worry, I'm not going to be here till I'm 82. So, I'm not going to be coaching that long. But it's he to the last day, the last time that we had him on that practice field. I mean, Joe was always engaged. It was amazing.
And I think we'll just let Dave McClung have the last word there about your wonderful family and such great news about your daughter. That's as tough of a world as it is to compete in. And so we wish her and you and Abby and all the deals much success.
Yeah, there's no sugarcoating the ballet world. It's they don't worry about hurting feelings there. There's no like you're not going to anybody and like hey, you're too tall, out. You're too pronated, out. You're too blonde, out. So but she's fantastic. Like I said, she's been on her own since she was 15 in Miami. And the good news is I got alums everywhere, right? I had Kajana Carter and I had big old Conlon down there and OJ McDuffie taking good care of her. And now Nashville, I just got a hold of Carrie and Mike Archie. For the guys that don't know, remember Mike Archie and Carrie Collins. They're down in Nashville now, so they'll have a finger on the pulse with her. It'll be pretty good. So not too bad.
So, Kirk, we want to thank you for joining us on Football Letter Live. We're still knocking off the rust here with our spring blue-white only edition.
I do got to tell you what blue-white means to me. Two things. Blue-white means to me it's practice number 15. So everybody remember that. It's just another practice. And the last thing you want to do is get somebody hurt. So don't – and, they're just looking at – if Coach Franklin's running it the way that we did it, it's just you're looking at who wants to compete, but you don't want to get anybody hurt because that's tough. So it's just remember to come up, have a good time, get those tailgates going, but and don't get sunburned. It's supposed to be sunny, so thank goodness it snowed today again. And
it's our guaranteed first win of 2022.
Yeah, you're well. We always had the blue-white MVP too. We would Spire and I would give an official someone you never heard of. And they would have like 15 carries for 98 yards, and we'd give them the blue-white jersey MVP, and then they would be back on the demonstration team knowing their role. But it was great. It's always great. Just don't get hurt. That's all you want.
I no, Russ, I was just going to wait, let Kirk keep talking. I was just going to hang out till like 9, 10 o'clock. I mean, I was until they kick us out of here. So.
We're looking at each other.
Like more stories. But no, Kirk, we appreciate the time. I think we got to have you back on. But no, appreciate the time. Obviously wishing you and your family all the best. And thanks for making time for us tonight. We appreciate it.
Yeah, I think so. And if I could leave just everybody, just like Grant said, Penn State's special. Just keep carrying the banner. Don't let anybody tell you anything about Penn State that you don't know about. It is who we are, and it's changed. It's different, but it's still Penn State. It's still home, and that's my charge. Is to when I get the alumni engaged with them, it's still your home, and everybody's story is different, but it's the same. It's a special place. So I appreciate it, Paul and John. It was an awesome opportunity. And, when Cheryl reached out and said if I was interested, I'm usually not in the front, right? I'm always the guy behind the camera. But this was fun. This was fun to see some engagement and be able to share my story, my little piece of Penn State. So thank you.
Thanks again, Kirk.
Thanks, Kirk. Appreciate you.
Yeah, definitely having him back on, John. We could have Kirk could have his own segment on Football Letter Live, just stories with Kirk.
Yeah, him and Spider. Next time they come back, it's got to be like Kirk and Spider, and then we just take ourselves off camera, and those two guys just like have the hour for themselves.
That's exactly right. That would be a lot of fun. So, hey, John, I don't want to let the show end without taking the opportunity to recognize you and congratulate you for being named the new editor of the Football Letter. After 46 years, John Black has decided to pass the torch, and I couldn't think of anyone better to pass it to than to you, carrying on the tradition from Ridge Riley to John Black, and now to you, John Petishnock. So, John, you're 2005 grad. Talk about and the lifelong Penn Staters, right? So you know what this position means and what those two names mean in Penn State history. What can fans expect out of what the new era might look like?
Yeah, I mean, thank you, Paul. I appreciate it. Obviously thrilled to have this opportunity, thrilled to meet even more Penn Staters on the road and here at University Park. We've talked a lot about, with having the new show come on in the last couple of years and expanding the Football Letter coverage with the game day email, we definitely and absolutely will stay true to the original mission. I mean, I remember John Black telling me he's the eyes and ears at Beaver Stadium and on the road for alumni and fans, and that will continue. We want to transform, or actually we want to transport, alumni and fans onto the field even more so. World-class photographer Steve Manuel, he's going to continue to take photos. We're going to continue our video coverage on the field, on the road. We've got Vince Longaro, our all-star producer. He's going to be in the press box this fall, helping us out with the blog and social. And so we want to strive to provide a perspective that alumni can't find anywhere else. There are a lot of people out there talking about Penn State football. We really want to continue to be that correspondent at the game for our alumni to say, here are some things you might have missed on TV. Here are some things that, we think that you'll appreciate more from an alumni perspective. Certainly, we want to show how Penn State won the game, but we also want to bring you, what was the game day atmosphere like? What's the role of the Blue Band and the fan and the Nittany Lions and the alumni who come back and appreciate this place? And so, they say never meet your legends. John Black is the exception. And you talk about somebody setting a role that will live on forever. And so, I'm excited, but it's a responsibility, and it's one that I freely accept. And so lots more football coverage, and looking forward to hearing that feedback from the fans, and also interested to get John's perspective this fall. I'm curious when the first Football Letter comes out, if I'm going to get an email or I'll knock on the door and he's going to be like, I like what you did here. But no, I'm just joking. Of course, he was a big fan of how we've expanded with the video coverage and the social media coverage, and so having John's support has meant, everything and more over the years. And so, more of the same, because I think that's what alumni have come to expect, and what alumni deserve, to be quite candid.
Yeah. Whatever feedback John Black will give you, it'll be done with class and with love and with care, just because he wants you to be better, wants Penn State to be better. It's just, in the dictionary next to the word gentleman is a picture of John Black.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you talk about a role model. I mean, I'll never be on that level of a gentleman in class with John Black, but I can sure as heck try. And so in a lot of ways, I feel like I'm ready, but because I was able to learn and work with John for the last 7 or 8 years. And so absolutely ready to get after it starting this weekend with Blue White.
Well, look at that. Cheryl Harrison sending a comment in. She said she was going to stop listening after Kirk rolled off, but we've managed to keep her attention a little bit. So Cheryl, shout out to you. Good to see you continuing to watch Football Letter Live. Well, John, we are at the 8:00 hour. The bells on Old Main have chimed already, and we have gone into overtime. So you're getting some free Football Letter Live here. A number of other things we wanted to get to tonight, but we are just going to say, check out the Football Letter blog. Go to our website at alumni.psu.edu to get all the information about all the great things that are going on here at Penn State. Blue White Weekend. We have We Are Weekend coming up, not too far in the distance. And so, John, any closing thoughts that you might have?
Go Blue, go White, go State.
Absolutely. Shout out to Vincent Longaro, not able to produce tonight's show, on vacation, which is much deserved. But shout out to Vincent and his family, who are in our thoughts and prayers. So, John, thanks for all you continue to do for the Alumni Association, for the university, and for the glory. We are
Penn State.